This is just a really basic guide to give you a bit of an overview of Year 11 essay writing and the types of things you'll need to do to actually get a good mark for your own response. So these are the elements. You should be quite familiar with some of them, so we'll start with those. So obviously quotes, you'll need to use a lot of those. General rule is 1 to 2 per paragraph, though you can use more, especially if you're using really small little segmented quotes rather than more full, lengthy quotes. The other thing you'll already be familiar with, of course, is evidence. That's pretty much the same, whether you're giving examples, scenes, or events that happen, that's really consistent. Authorial style, and it's got here film techniques, but that's also literary devices if you're doing a written text. And these are, there's a list of these, of all of these that you could look up depending on whatever film and whatever text you are looking at. But you don't necessarily, most films will have a particular range of film techniques that would be most worth looking at, and likewise literary devices for each text. So hopefully you'll get a bit of guidance around which ones in particular you are looking for, though it wouldn't hurt to just do a bit of research on literary devices and film techniques generally, and then apply those to your own understanding of the text. So one that probably you've had explained to you a number of times is authorial intent, this one here. You've probably attempted it, but this is where you really need to actually provide evidence in Year 11 and actually say, not just say what you think they're trying to say or why you think they're trying to say it, but also give a little bit of background. So this might require a little bit of biographical detail on the person who wrote the text or made the film. And this again is something you can do at home without direction. Just kind of look up as much detail as you can about the person, the creator, we'll call it, of the text, and go through and find those things. Historical, social, cultural, again, this is text specific, but if you just did a bit of research on the kind of events, the era, the things that were happening around that time, this would also be really useful for you. So depending on your text and your prior knowledge, there are some things you can do by yourself on these aspects, and there are some things that you'll need a little bit of guidance around. Alright, so the structure, this is, as it says, though flexible, so you can sort of adapt it as you feel. You start with your topic sentence like always, provide some evidence, give a quote embedded of course, then a little bit of authorial style, so literary or film techniques, historical, social and cultural, this would be references to things that happened at the time, and to achieve a really high level of this you're going to have to then refer to, link it to the present day, so how it affects you or how it relates to you. Authorial intent, why you think the author was trying to do what they were doing, or director. And this is sort of, this section kind of ties together the rest. So you're putting forward a viewpoint here, providing evidence and details, and then connecting it to the era, and then your intent sentence should kind of tie all that together and say why all of those things were used and combined to make an effect on the audience. And then a linking sentence, obviously only for paragraph 1 and 2. You don't need a link for the third, because that doesn't connect to anything, of course. And then there are some exemplar sentences there. So as a paragraph, it would read as the way that Vincent's nature and capabilities are presented directly lays out the foundation for a positive and bright future. Nichols' conception of our future is slightly more uplifting, as illustrated by his creation of Vincent Anton Freeman, whose very name hints at his free nature and his destiny being to conquer. The quote that opens the film's title card of "Consider what God has done, who can straighten what he has made crooked," suggests that nature, through God, is perfect and not needing of change. The scene that shows this best is when Vincent's conception is shown. Rosary beads are shown prominently, and his mother Maria, a derivation of Mary, the mother of Jesus, gives birth to him swathed in green, a colour that represents nature. So the techniques I'm talking about, I probably could have better illustrated that this was a close-up, and the way his mother Maria was depicted through a long shot, yada yada yada. I could get more meta language in there, but the thing I'm talking about mostly is the colour palette of the film. So that's just a little example that you could use for yourself or find your own for your text. HSC, which is historical, social, cultural. In the 1990s, the largest limitations on people were caused by their own laziness or lack of concern for world affairs. So this one's not very specific. What you're actually usually looking for is proper nouns, so capital letters, groups, names, organizations, events, movements, and not so much dates, but years at least. So this at least places the text in a time frame and gives us a little bit of analysis about it. but then linking it to his message is good, but an even better response would then link it to the present day. So nowadays, what's more common is something else. Authorial intent. Nichols' message is that our societies ought to be meritocracies and that hard work will win out. And then I've got a linking sentence there which you can use or not depending on where you're up to. So whilst Vincent is shown as the shining light of success through hard work, Eugene shows the opposite, which is not a great linking sentence, but gives you a bit of an idea of how it might go. When you do your own, these are kind of some sentence starters. They're not great, but they can give you a little bit of guidance. The topic sentence one is tricky because depending on the keywords that you'll be using for your own text and your essay question will dictate how you'll structure it. But basically, you'll say the person's name, the author, creator, director, establishes that blah, blah, blah is blah, blah, blah. So that's whatever statement you're making on the text. Evidence. Generally, something like this is clearly shown when is a good beginning. Quotes, as with any piece of dialogue, basically, you just say who said it. And obviously this word is kind of your chance to show off. States, infers, there's a whole range of formal phrases you can use to punch that up a bit. Authorial style, this is best illustrated by, is a good starter. During the year or decade, it was believed that is one way to set it up, but it'll be different depending on whether you're talking about a historical element, a social element, or a cultural element. And then authorial intent, as always, you'll need the person's name. Does this to illustrate the point that, and that gives you kind of a guide. Linking sentence, person one establishes thing one is thing two, whilst also making reference to thing three and stating that it is thing four. So that's kind of a real rough guide. Hope that gives you a bit of an indication of how to structure out a paragraph for Year 11 essay writing and just a general overview of the sort of things you might need to start thinking about and preparing for.